This is the hardest exam in the world. It is known as the Gaokao, the Chinese college entrance exam known for its high demands, time limits, and the fact that nobody has managed to get a perfect score yet. This test is so important, in fact, that people pay thousands of dollars to get the best preparation possible. According to the country's ideals, students are expected to focus solely on studying and perform as best as they can, with little room for creativity, critical thinking, and massive societal pressure. This type of thought has always been present in the Chinese society. An arcade video game, which will turn out to be one of the most influential video games ever, gets licensed by Atari. The game in question, Space Invaders, becomes its killer application and is the first title ever to sell 1 million copies. Sales of the Atari Video Computer System, or the Atari 2600, double the same year, just to double once again in the next 2 years.
Life could be a dream, life could be a dream.
According to the good old American principle of monkey see,
Is that a smoking orangutan?
monkey do, monkey see money, monkey make console. Philips, Model, CBS Electronics, and many other smaller names produce their own gaming consoles. They all wanted to secure the bag. The demand for video games was up 100%, but manufacturing output was all the way up at 175, so it was only a matter of time until
1983 video game crash.
Soon after, third-generation consoles take over, and Japan becomes a dominant factor in the market. As a neighbor, they are the first to dip their fingers into the fattest gaming market in the world.
Chinese gaming market.
But they had no idea what their move would do to a single-child state. Chinese youth was instantly hooked, but with tariff rates as high as 130% and additional value taxes, Chinese bootlegs are first born. With the nation's poor intellectual property laws, piracy is running rampant, and by the 1990s, most systems available within the country were manufactured there. So, you see, Chinese students were spending most time at home studying, basically all of them being single children, had few others to interact with, and little to do outside of school. It was common for a lot of them to relax by playing video games, but with easier access to consoles thanks to these bootlegs, a broader concern is raised in the media about the digital heroin, and by the year 2000, the concerns about video game addiction and negative influence on the youth came to a head. In June, the State Council passed a bill to ban the import, sale, and production of consoles and arcade machines, even though it was not absolute. With the release of PlayStation 2 and several of Nintendo's consoles rebranded under the name of IQ, it largely put an end to console gaming there. The regulations didn't mention anything about PCs. Same story again. Just like there were bootleg consoles, now they would pirate software. Video game publishers had to be smarter. They released their games with low or non-existent upfront cost, made them be playable online, and monetize them over time. People get hooked, companies grow, and once again, regulations come. This time with the 2007 anti-addiction measures we now know China so well for. These measures required gamers to use their state ID or phone number and limited the time they could play if they were under 18. At first, after playing for several hours on end, players would receive less rewards or even lose them altogether. There was so little to do in the real world though that this deterred nobody. Just like before, after about 10 years, another system is popular. This time it was mobile phones, with Apple's introduction to the nation, which to this day has the largest market share out of mobile devices in China. Mobile games grew from about 10% of all gaming in 2012 to 41% in 2014, which again led to further restrictions. With each new policy on video games, the largest companies would lose massive amounts of their value. And this same story goes on to this day. All these changes, restrictions, and concerns were concerning the happiness and well-being of the youth. While there are many more other factors at play than these regulations, they didn't seem to help with growing isolation, loneliness, and mental illness. Many people, being overwhelmed with education, end up in terrible factory jobs, and with no way to escape their sad reality, they resort to
We know.
What is this exquisite taste? I must know.
This exquisite taste is my Patreon. For the small price of $5, your name will be hidden somewhere in the video, and if you pledge more, instead of just your name, you will become a whole living and breathing creature drawn by me, just like the silver frog. Please make me suffer through more sleepless nights by making me draw you, and check out the links below. This is the promotional video for the 3rd anniversary of the global version of Honkai Impact 3rd. It features some of the most popular characters, including Yae Sakura, dressed in bunny girl outfits. This tiny event will eventually lead one young man to ruin his life. But let's get back to the beginning. The developer behind Honkai Impact, Mihoyo, is well aware of China's history of video game regulations, but as huge anime and video game fans, the founders just wanted to realize their dreams of having a good anime product. And despite all the obstacles, they managed to achieve that. But with no variety, they have to tread carefully. It is possible that they are aware of another regulation coming to town later during the same year, so to not lose their life's work, they wanted to play it safe. Even though there are plenty of skimpy outfits in the game, releasing something new would give them too much publicity. But releasing things outside of China is another story. With plenty big Chinese-only events, it only seemed fair to give something this high quality to the global population. And this starts a problem. Chinese players hear about the announcement and now they are getting jealous that they won't get the same event, which in a short amount of time turned into envy. And with the spread of the news came bewitched people. The bewitched people would spread misinformation and toxicity on most popular Chinese websites, calling these characters e-prostitutes and saying things like one Reddit user by the name of Teresa, who, to take their word for it, is Chinese, said this:
Let me evaluate these idiots again. They are a group of extremely misogynistic and xenophobic losers. They can't find girlfriends in reality, so they have to vent their disgusting desire for control over virtual characters on the internet.
These distasteful remarks towards the characters soon spread like a worm in a network, poisoning perspectives of average players, with people now confusing bunny girls with sex workers. The outfits were labeled as inappropriate and the dances was out of character. All the company wanted to do was to make something cool, but some things are just illegal in China. The country is very traditional with its values, and this shows even in the gacha. With players wanting to have these characters all to themselves, they hated to see them dance for others. One player's testimony being,
"Most Chinese players think it's improper to make these characters dance as bunny girls. Some players think Mihoyo disregards the dignity of these characters in order to make the players of the global server happy."
which kind of is what the company is supposed to do, make the players happy, but this doesn't cover the whole story. Tencent and NetEase are well known for their use of cyber warfare, using bots and hiring people to defame competition. It might just be that the situation wouldn't ever escalate to the point it did if it wasn't for the continuous backlash, but with the story making it to the front pages of the most popular Chinese websites and even reaching nationwide coverage, on the 21st of April, Mihoyo is forced to remove or alter all of its contents. And just as a cherry on top, compensations for the mishandling rolled out in the form of in-game currency that allowed you to roll characters. Chinese players received 2,800 gems, while the global population only got 500, further dividing the two communities. One angry, lonely man grabs a knife and walks out of his apartment. He makes his way to Mihoyo's main building. With the image of his favorite anime fox girl dressed in a bunny suit in his head, one last time he looks at the entrance door and sneaks in right behind an employee. He knows he has to work fast. His goal is to find the founders of the company. So he starts looking one by one. First floor,
Nothing.
second floor.
Nothing. Again.
What he doesn't know is that he's being watched. A security camera operator wasn't asleep this time, since it's right around the noon. He watches the intruder run aimlessly around the building and calls two of his colleagues to check on this young man. The criminal is just one floor away from the conference room, where most important people in the company are discussing the future of their games. Getting closer with each step, in the corner of his eye, he catches a security guard and in desperation, he bumps into the second guard and falls. Next to him, a knife. The police gets involved. Now you can guess how it went. Curiously, all information about this event is very broad, and if we try to look at Chinese articles that cover the topic, for the most part, they are inaccessible or no longer available. Mihoyo doesn't like when you talk about this. Months later, awaiting his trial, the inmate hears news of yet another policies. This time, they concern culture, like regulating the display of effeminate men or censorship of too revealing clothes. In a mad fit of rage, he starts trashing his cell. Caught off guard by the sudden display, the officer watches in amusement, yet he quickly connects the dots. Socially isolated, overwhelmed, angry man who lived with his parents and spent everything on gacha characters. An uncomfortable connection pops up. If it wasn't for those pesky video games, this guy surely wouldn't be all that, right? It can't be that the reason this digital heroine exists is much more complicated. Well, Mr. Officer, no matter what the truth really is, one fact stays true. If China got their bunny girls, none of this would have ever happened.